Hello everyone. Today we're going to continue our journey with the Israelites. Last week we saw how God gave Moses the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. But if you remember, Moses was up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and while he was there, God gave him a lot more information about how the Israelites should live their lives and how they should worship him. Today we're going to take a look at some of those instructions. God told Moses how to build something called a tabernacle. The tabernacle was a big tent with three main areas. It was to be the place where God's presence would rest so that he could be with his people, and it was to be situated right in the center of the Israelite camp. Because God's presence was there, God chose Aaron, Moses' brother, and his sons to be priests to represent the Israelites. Only the priests could enter the tabernacle. God also told Moses what should go in the tabernacle and where it should be placed. He even said what the priests should wear. The tabernacle was pretty big. The outer area was open, enclosed by curtains made of fine cloth on all sides. The courtyard, as it was called, was 150 feet long and 75 feet wide. The entrance at one end was made from finely woven cloth in red, purple, and blue. The Israelites could enter this area. Through the entrance, the first thing you would come to was the altar of burnt offerings. This was made of very hard wood and overlaid with bronze. The altar is where the priests and the Levites would make sacrifices to God on behalf of the Israelites. It was pretty big, 7.5 feet square and nearly 5 feet tall. Next to the altar was something called the bronze laver. This was a big bowl that the priests used to ceremonially wash their hands and feet, to purify themselves before they made sacrifices and before they went into the tabernacle. Then you would come to the tabernacle itself. The tabernacle was a big tent made with a wooden frame. All of the wood for the frame was covered with pure gold. It was 45 feet long and 15 feet wide. Over the frame were 4 different coverings. The innermost curtain was made of finely woven linen in blue, purple, and scarlet. It was highly decorated and had cherubim woven into the pattern. It must have been really beautiful. Over that was laid a blanket made out of goat's hair, and then the next layer was goat skin that had been dyed red. Finally, the outermost covering was made of waterproof leather to protect everything inside it. Interestingly, the coverings got more and more valuable and more beautiful the closer that you got to the center. Inside the tabernacle were 2 areas. The first area that you would enter from the courtyard was called the Holy Place, or the place of meeting. This then led to the Holy of Holies. The Holy Place took the first 30 feet of the tabernacle, and the last 15 feet was the Holy of Holies. In the Holy Place, there was a lampstand, the table of the bread of presence, and another altar called the altar of incense. The table of the bread of presence was also made out of wood, and again it was covered all over with pure gold. On it was placed 12 loaves. The bread was not offered to God for food, because this would have signified that God was reliant on the Israelites, and this was not the case. The bread was eaten by the priests on the Sabbath and was symbolic of God's provision to the Jews, reminding them how God fed them whilst they were in the wilderness. The 12 loaves represented the 12 tribes of Israel. Opposite the table, there was a lampstand. This was made of a single piece of pure gold, and it was very ornate. It had a center branch with 6 branches off it, 3 on either side. The priests had to keep the lamps lit at all times, signifying that God's presence was always with his people. The last item in the holy place was the altar of incense. Again, this was made of wood and again covered in pure gold. After sacrifices were made on the altar of burnt offerings, the priests would take hot coals to the altar of incense, where they would burn special spices. They smelt really nice and were pleasing to God and signified God's acceptance of the burnt offerings and the forgiveness of sins. Finally, you came to the Holy of Holies. It was separated from the holy place by a very heavy and beautifully made curtain. The Holy of Holies was the place where the presence of the Lord would rest, and it was the place where the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat were situated. Only the priests were allowed in the holy place, and only the high priest was allowed in the Holy of Holies, and then only once a year. The Ark contained the stone tablets of the law that Moses had received on Mount Sinai. It also contained a gold pot containing some of the manna that God fed the Israelites with in the desert, and Aaron's rod. The mercy seat formed the lid for the ark and was made of pure gold, with cherubim facing inwards, their wings outstretched over it to protect it. The ark and the mercy seat were the most ornate of all of the pieces of furniture in the tabernacle, signifying that they were the most holy. They were the symbols of God's relationship with the Israelites. God wanted to live amongst his people, and this is where he would live. Lastly, God gave instructions about what the priests should wear when they were in the tabernacle. They had special clothes, a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a woven tunic, a turban, and a sash around their waist. They were made from the most expensive thread in gold, blue, purple, and scarlet, and had precious stones with engravings on, sewn into them. The clothes set the priests apart from the people and honoured God with their beauty. The Jews followed God's instructions to the letter and built the tabernacle and made the clothes exactly how God told them to. And God lived amongst the Israelites just as he promised. This is why and how the Israelites built the tabernacle. Thank you.